Okay, well, I guess we'll just go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our part 3 of our weekly live stream series. My name is Tara Panu. I'm the VP of Marketing and Customer Experience at Movius, and I'm joined by my colleague, Andy Faulknall, our Client Success Director out of the UK. Good afternoon, Andy. It's getting closer to happy hour.
Yes, it is. Yes, almost good evening. Thank you for having me on. This will be good.
Oh, no. And I'm really excited about this conversation. We've had a lot of talks before. I'm really excited to just sort of unpack this topic. It's been, I think in the financial services space, this whole concept of a work from home trader has been getting a lot of buzz and questions. And it's been a huge topic across the board. And for those of you who don't know Andy, actually prior to Movius, you spent 25 years at HSBC where you were running this function from a product perspective. So I'm really excited to get to ask you and get your perspective on the topic. So I guess maybe get started, maybe give a little bit of background and your role prior to Movius.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So yeah, you and many others keep reminding me it's 25 years that I spent in HSBC. That is a long innings. But yeah, it was, I worked in IT within HSBC pretty much all the way through that tenure. Most recently of the last 5 or 6 years was firmly within the investment bank as a global product and program manager. Program management to begin with morphed into product as well towards the last couple of years, firmly in the end user computing space for the front office trading environment. So as we're here talking about today, the computing end user computing products that the traders use across the board, across the industry, has been close to my heart for quite a few years now, and really looking at how my biggest aim at the time was how to innovate and bring new, exciting, innovative end user products to the trade floor. And yeah, so well versed in the world of working from home by my own working styles, but also fully empathize with the traders up until this time have never had that capability really to due to the highly regulated nature of their business to really work outside of their office. So I've got a level of sympathy for them now for what they're having to go through from the shift just within the end user and within the companies themselves, the shift to be solely working out of home locations with new technology, different technology. Yeah, it's great to be able to share some of my experiences and my thoughts on what everybody is kind of going through at the moment, and then really looking ahead at what it is, what's this change going to do for that working environment? What is it that we will see going forward? Hopefully, some benefit coming from some of these changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to getting into that. So, I mean, take a step back, right? Prior to what all is happening, what were from your side, right? I mean, you were running, evaluating technologies for the trading floor. What were the common misconceptions about the use of personal devices, right? Because now we're in a very different environment. A lot of firms are now finally, I think, executing and mandating, right, work from home policies, right? But it took them a while over the last several weeks to really get them there. So can you maybe just share?
Well, I think for my own experience, and I'm sure I share the same with many others, it's not a misconception, but personal devices were just unheard of. Use of personal devices was really reluctant, if not frowned upon, if not just a strict no in highly regulated environments. Just the fear around the lack of security or the inability to undertake proper surveillance, maybe the luxury or the chance of using a tool or technology that isn't really allowed within the confines of the business as well. It's too easy to be able to fall into the wrong product, the wrong application on our own device. So really, rather than being a misconception, it absolutely was something that was never really ever even considered because of the fears around it. So now moving into somewhere where it's potentially a lot of the technology that's being used out there is their own device is a huge shift. And really, for my part, I worked alongside a number of all my peers were in different business lines within HSBC, but undertaking similar roles. So they were really embracing or talking about a strategy of bring your own device, bring not just in mobile, but in personal computer as well. So bring your own laptop. So really, all of the other parts of different or financial institutions, and you and I right now, we take it for granted that we can use our own devices day in, day out for what we want to do personally, but also for our own working needs, safe in the knowledge that it's secure, that kind of thing. So the misconceptions really in the investment bank was the lack of security or the inability to really run surveillance, but is now being proven, as we always knew from within IT, but there is that capability of security, and the technology is there to be able to enable people to work on their own device. We're now seeing it, and a lot of those people that probably didn't expect it to be possible are now having it really proven to them that it really is possible, staying safe, staying secure, and absolutely opening doors.
So, we've been seeing, through the Wall Street Journal, a number of articles, even visually seeing what some of the trading environments now that these folks are working from home. I mean, anywhere from forwarding lines to actually recording on pen and paper. Like, what's your reaction and how they're responding to this?
Well, the reaction around pen and paper, I think, was the same for everybody, but it's kind of needs must, isn't it? If you think about it, the first thing most of financial institutions would have had to have done when the shock hit us of we are actually going to lock down across the globe, not just in certain countries, was what do? We must really shore up our existing systems, protect our firm, and number one, protect our individuals. So how we go about those things was the typical reaction is use the systems that we have available to us today, and if they're not available, fill the gaps. So the fill the gap there is if we can't undertake full surveillance at home, but we must ensure to protect the individual to be at home, that may result in using pen and paper. At least we have a log for what actually is taking place during the transaction or during that communication. And yeah, I smile, and I'm sure a lot of other people did smile as well when they read that article, that pen and paper was being used. But when you take a moment to think about it, it's really what the first reaction would have been to ensure that keeping the lights on really does mean do whatever it takes. It protects everybody, protecting the firm. We have a log of it. We've managed to get everybody to be in a safe environment away from a shared office environment, and needs must. And that was the kind of first response reaction, and absolutely right. I look at it now and think, well, maybe there's more that we can do.
What do you think about, you've got firms that maybe are, individuals that have either from their recorded lines and their desk phones that they can no longer get to, are having to forward now calls to their personal devices.
Yeah.
And then with the combination of folks even having to note those logs and manually record those, what are, I can imagine challenges with just from an IT perspective, just managing a lot of this. So what are some of the risks with these various approaches that you're seeing right now?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. As part of shoring up the systems, that's just a kind of phrase I've given it as what would have happened as the first reaction. Is using the tools that they use day in, day out as best as they can. And if that means the recorded turret line or private wire they have in the trading rooms, then forwarding those lines to another device. There's a process called line intercept for the private wires, or if it's just a straightforward call forward to another device. They're both effective in many ways. If the inbound call comes in and it forwards to another device, great. If it was recorded beforehand, 99% of the time it will be recorded when it moves to that forwarded device. And I say 99% because you can never be entirely sure. As soon as we put a forward in there, there's an element of unknown. There is a risk, I don't know how big, maybe a low risk, but still a risk that as and when that call is forwarded, if there's a belief that the call is still being recorded even though it's being forwarded and the recording has failed, it's already moved to the subsidiary device and there's no recollection or record of it being recorded, you'd think the call has failed. From a recording perspective, it could still take place. And these are the kind of gaps, these are the sorts of risks that those kind of tactical measures that were needed, those are the kind of risks that are quite easily there because of it. And we'll talk a little bit more later about performance, because I'd like to spend some time talking about that. But yeah, just the added performance impact on doing all of these sort of things on devices, on people's own devices, or even the ones that the company has provided for them. It's still very, very different to the super robust, almost server room-like technologies that the traders are used to on their trading floors.
So let's actually get right into that though. So then now, what does that environment look like, right, for these traders at home?
Probably what you're looking at right now and what I'm looking at right now, I can't imagine it to be much different. It's going to be a mobile device, a laptop of some sort, one, maybe two screens, but it's difficult, or if not impossible, to get many more than a couple of screens connecting to a laptop. So what they used to having 3, 4, maybe 5 screens, it's now condensed into 1 or maybe 2. It's going to be a small home office location. The kids are probably going to be close by, all that kind of stuff that we're all getting used to in this new normal, as it's being called right now. But yeah, these devices, they're great for casual working from home, typical back office type functions of reading emails, joining meetings, this kind of collaboration. Is it fit for purpose for frontline trading? Certainly isn't, is it? And I think that this is, you're probably finding a lot of people saying exactly that. They're getting by, but they're not going to be at all as productive as they were previously. Because just one thing, that the devices aren't, the performance of the devices, but everything that the trader is used to working off 1, maybe 2 computers of server levels performance and specification, all pushed down to a home laptop or a corporate provided laptop via a typical broadband connection. It really is incredible to think that they can do most of the things that they do out of the office on a device that we all kind of use day in, day out for just email and general collaboration. So all of those applications are running side by side, all consuming a certain bit of PC resource, and that's before you're trying to have this video conversation or a phone call as well. And obviously then you've got the recording lines. There's so much going on a device now for that trader. It's just almost impossible to say that they can be as effective as they really need to be.
How does this impact the communication part, right? Because of their requirement, they have to have those calls recorded, and then being able to reproduce that after the effect. Like, where do you see potential gaps, and what are areas for consideration for IT leaders now? And yeah,
you will have something on the lines of the trader turret, the virtual software, the software-based version of that installed on the device or running in a VMware session on the device, but alongside email, alongside a unified comms product like we're on today, alongside all their trading tools. All of those things, how can they all work well together? They really can't. So to be able to use another device, somehow share that load balancing like we've got with Movius Multiline, where we can say, well, your communication doesn't have to be via the PC. It can be via the mobile phone, either on voice or data. Putting it onto just voice minutes takes it away from that already throttled internet connection. We're saying move that away, level out and load balance some of this internet traffic and some of this PC resource consumption, so you've got a meaningful and compliant way to still communicate with your customers, your teams, your clients. At the same time, you're not adding to extra pain on that PC, potential slowness or poor quality voice or video quality, as well as more and more things are being used at the same time. All of these things start to add up. So yeah, being able to move it away. If I'm to offer any kind of advice, it would be absolutely that. Try and share some of that load across 1, 2, 3 devices. Little things like we're using a webcam now. Would you use a webcam if you've got a key trading solution? Possibly, but I wouldn't keep it on all the time. I'd be saying, right, use your audio line for all of your calls and away from data as much as possible, to keep that data there fresh just for your trading tools.
If you think about like just a day in the life, right, of the trader, right, you've got multiple parties, right, that you're communicating. That if you look at the entire transaction process, and if you were to go back and reconstruct the trade, you've got multiple people you're speaking with, right? Whether that's internal and then the actual end customer. So because of how highly regulated these types of users are, from an IT perspective, how have they thought about this whole end-to-end workflow, right? And making sure that in this environment, I mean, in your previous role, it's how do you work with the other stakeholders to ensure all the people that are part of that process, you're able to really see what, that entire transaction end to end. I mean, how do people solve that?
There's a term called trade reconstruction, and in the event of any suspected market abuse or retrospective criminal investigation, this could be a year in the future, having to look back and say recreate all end-to-end pieces of a trade within 24 hours. I feel for anybody that's going to have to do that from something that's happened over the last couple of weeks, especially if there's been some pen and paper involved. Is that pen and paper, where is that information being logged? If there was a voice conversation outside of recording, or if there was a messaging platform used that isn't captured, all of these gaps, they were kind of already potentially there beforehand, and it was always a risk to compliance officers and control officers, but they'd manage it by always knowing that the work is being undertaken in a highly restricted area, highly regulated area like a trading floor. So not having that around them now, I feel for it. So again, how an IT team would look at saying, how do we make sure that this end-to-end is all there, is just simplifying all of those steps, taking away all of the extra complicated pieces. Why forward a line to a device? Well, it just adds an extra complication that we cannot even make an outbound call from the same line. So that would be coming from a different number. So an inbound and an outbound from a multi-line or another recorded line would just be one number. That's one simplified piece. Your SMS would be under that same number as well. So any kind of in and outbound message would still again be easily logged and archived under one number, as it is still today in the office, just under the trader turret, or if they're just on their recorded line, on their recorded mobile in the office today. Just keeping that bit simple. The CRM integration that multi-line offers is also key. That if we're having to have a trader who's sitting there writing down all of the client interaction afterwards, the CRM will do that and transcript it. Our Movius plugin transcripts it directly into Salesforce now. So that piece of work's gone as well. Again, simplifying what is already a very, very difficult time for the end user, for that trader. So we're just using IT, using some of the technology that we already have available to really just simplify that process for them.
Sorry, we're getting some questions here. So I'm just going to actually, this is a good one. So here's one that came in. So if we agreed that the current crisis will probably drive long-term changes in how we work and a greater use of personal devices like you talked about, how does the Movius application approach to the problem create efficiencies that traditional SIM solutions don't?
Well, good question. I think the biggest difference, and one of my colleagues put this to me the other day, we are in the app world now. If you think about everything that we have on our devices is application based. Our Macs or our PCs, the Windows 10 is still application based. So everybody is used to operating via an app. Now, recording in the compliance space, historically, the feeling was robustness of using it on a SIM. Wherever that SIM went, the recording would go to. But all that would do is wherever that SIM went would have to be in a device that somebody's happy for that device 100% to be recorded. So there was, from a company out perspective, absolutely we're fine. But from an individual's perspective, it's like I must hold this recorded device. And then I've also got my own unrecorded device because I don't want them to record everything that I do. I finish work at 5 p.m. That's it. I'm not going to talk about work. Why should I be recorded? But where multi-line comes in, and the big differentiator there is you can bring the two together onto that own device. That own device is still personal space, but inside there you have the corporate space, the recorded line within there. It can be alongside corporate email in a container as well, and that happens, and that's what we've been providing for many years. But I think more so now, more than ever, we're moving into a world where that will be expected. we are going to be expecting to be working in all different types of places, different ways. The big shift for the people that have never been able to work from home, they're not going to turn around and go, "What, I must go back into the office now, relinquish all of the technology I had on my own device, get back into the old way of working." I'll be very, very surprised and a little disappointed if that's how it went. So having tools like Multiline gets the hard parts done easily. We've been doing that ourselves for many years already.
You bring up that last part around the going back to the old way, right? So, you know, there's across LinkedIn and around the news, when people are talking about digital transformation, there's this question is what is actually driving that or accelerating those initiatives today? And they ask, is it the CEO, CTO, CIO, or COVID-19? And it's interesting one to think about, right? Because you look at how it's changing and transforming industries like the food and delivery space, you know, transforming events right into more of a virtual experience where people have the convenience of being at home. So for financial institutions now, not just maybe the trade, I mean, especially, you know, the seemingly very regulated users like the traders, how does this impact, or like, I'd love to get your perspective on how you see this really accelerating.
It's that term, the new normal, isn't it? My wife works for a bank and now working from home, and she never has. I know colleagues of mine from the front office in the investment bank who are working from home now that have never have in the role that they do. And it's just been, from their perspective, one, it's life changing anyway, but now it's work changing. So the new normal, as we call it today, in the way that we're just going around our daily business, hopefully that moves away, but the working styles remain. The working styles, as I said, it's the hardest part for compliance and surveillance teams and control offices to really sign up to, was the how do we ensure that we remain compliant, we remain recorded, and we have 100% trust in our employees to deliver the same level of the work that they do is at the same standard outside of the office as it is inside the office. We've had this thrust upon us now, and that's just proven it. Within 24 hours, it proved it. And to me, it's in kind of positive news. Looking at this positively, we've had all of those. We could have tested and tested and tested again. If somebody wasn't 100% convinced that we could have people working in a different way to what they work today in the investment bank, it wouldn't have flown. It wouldn't have flown. They would never have done it. This has had to happen, and now it is in place. There'll be a lot of compliance teams, surveillance teams, control officers in a couple of months' time thinking there's no need to revert back 100%. We'll still have trading rooms, but we'll have working from home rotors, or we'll have the capability for traders to work from the tube on the way into the office, or at a client meeting, the full end-to-end communication experience, where previously it's been a challenge where they would just have preloaded information of a slide deck or something like that. They can be completely online. So it's full transparency. And I think for me, that's the big game changer that's come off the back of this. And yeah, they're looking at this positively. That's going to really make a huge difference going forward.
What are the key considerations? So, you know, kind of going back into how you view this and how you work with other, you know, your internal stakeholders, right? Between compliance and surveillance teams, as well as the actual lines of business. How, you know, in this age, what are, you know, when people are really looking at this and taking a hard look at this new normal you talked about, what advice you have in terms of how do you bring those things in together? Like what are some key considerations, or where do you start?
Sure. Oh, well, good question. I think I started to touch on it earlier when I mentioned about simplifying. It's already a very, very complicated way to live at the moment. Let's all be honest. So if we're going to look at how we can improve on these things beyond COVID-19, but still keeping a lot of the flexibility and the mobility that we've now enabled, we look at keeping things simple, and we look at things like bringing your own device is a huge step forward in many ways for companies to grasp. But keeping it simple, we've got an application that's secure. It can work alongside a corporate email that we probably already have on that personal owned device. That's a very, very simple thing to do, rather than trying to bring in all the trading apps to the device, the mobile device, or all of the video capability, or all of the the team collaboration, that there's a way in which you can keep that on a mobile platform, or keep that in the office. It's just saying that there's a new combined world now that people can really make the most of. And I think by just simplifying how that's done, I think that really is a big differentiator going forward.
We have a couple questions that come in. So talk about, I think when people are approaching this, clearly, I think accounting for mobile is going to be critical, right? I think as we move forward, right? Because people are accessible anytime, anywhere. For those that have heavily invested in things like landlines and others, how does multi-line work in that scenario? Is it mobile only, or can you operate landline?
Yeah, one of the ways in which you can use multi-line is with a fixed line, with a landline. So you're effectively mobilizing your landline. So the work that they can work hand in hand. You can have a mobile device as an extension, as in another line compared to the fixed line, or you can just have the fixed line that rings in the desks when they're in the office. They leave with their mobile phone afterwards, but it's still, the multi-line is actually their fixed line number. So it's full mobility of that fixed line. And that's a very, very different way of looking at what was traditionally the mobile phone. But yeah, all of a sudden you've got that single number reach wherever you go. Your business line follows you, not just another business line. So you haven't got this suddenly a long business card with 10 different numbers. You've just got the one individual number. So that's it. And we've got companies now already using that today, and really seeing a big differentiator there, to be able to say, well, you can call me on this number, and you can call me whenever. It'll go, I can pick it up wherever I am. And again, when we move to a much more flexible way of working, then it's great to think, well, I'm still available on that single number. There isn't the need to forward lines and then pick up voicemails later, that kind of thing. It goes wherever you go, but with the flexibility to tailor the time and the schedule. So if you don't want to take the calls on the device, you can reduce it as well. It's full flexibility.
So what in your world, what is going to be the modern or the new traders environment?
When I was in HSBC, I spent many days recreating or trying to visualize with my stakeholders what the trading environment would look like in the future. And it's hard. We can't see into the future, of course we can't, or we would have seen what's going on now quite easily ahead of us. So it's proves we can't see into the future. But what I always try to visualize with everybody that came to look at our trader environment of the future was mobile. So there would be a touchscreen, either screens or devices like touchscreen laptops, and mobile. There was no cables. It was a cable-free environment, and that means cable-free doesn't mean you wouldn't have no cables, but then not attached to a desk. It means you can take whatever you've got and it comes with you wherever you go. So my view of where things are is just literally no cable at all. We'll be collaborating in various different ways. I think video will feature very, very highly in an office-based environment. But would you want to be talking on a video as you're walking down the street on Fifth Avenue? Maybe not. It's very difficult as well. But you want to be able to have that still one-on-one communication, no matter where you are, fully compliant, but just in a way that makes you completely flexible and mobile. And yeah, so it was. I probably had things like pipe dreams said to me at the time. Some of these things when I first started to visualize this, but now look at it. It only takes a couple of years, and then something significant to come along that forces that issue, and now all of a sudden we're working without wires, and then we just, as soon as we can get to the point of being much more mobile again, I think you'll find some of these investment banks are really starting to grasp this mobile way of working, and we're here to help them, and we're here to continue to work with them using multi-line and giving them extra tools to be able to get their traders working from anywhere.
Like that. I think we see that, compliance is always in the past, I'm sure, has been what's inhibited, I think, innovation, right, for a lot of these users. But now you're saying it's really, I think, enabling, right? Some new,
yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. Previously, it was always seen as the one thing that would stop certain innovations from moving as quickly as where it isn't as highly regulated or as highly need for high compliance. I think we've proven over the last weeks and months that that's not the case anymore. And we are in a position where, or anywhere that needs to be compliant through healthcare, through financial services, through services like the police force as well, and the military. These things, they are now in a position where you can really work from anywhere, safe in the knowledge that the compliance works too.
Great. I know we're at the last bit of it. I'm just going through to see if there's any other questions. So in summary, I guess there's one more question here. So in kind of building this action plan, kind of key factors that you take into consideration, if you were to summarize just sort of what we discussed here, for anybody in IT, anybody in compliance, and kind of mirroring the various stakeholders together, what are some of those key factors?
Sure. Okay. So yeah, if I put my program manager hat on as opposed to the product manager now. So yeah, the first reaction, as I would have seen, and I think everybody did it, I did it myself personally, was literally just how do you shore up your existing environment? And we've all been through that over the last few weeks, keeping the lights on, mobilizing our workforce, keeping our workforce safe, and then getting back to work as best we can. So that's been where everybody's kind of transitioned through. And I think me personally, and I think there's a few others as well, we're at the point now of going, okay, we're not going anywhere fast at the moment. This is the new current normal. How do we make the best of what we've got? And that's where I'm starting to say about making sure that the load balancing of the devices that you're using are done sensibly. Move your calls to your mobile line, make sure your mobile line is recorded, reduce video time to when you need to collaborate rather than always video first, because it's consuming so much more extra resources when you've got trading software on there that you really need front and center. And then after that, this is me looking into the future bit again, but hopefully it's not pie in the sky stuff. Very, very soon, hopefully we're in a position where we can start to think about what the new normal is going to be, and then we start to embrace some of these changes that we've put in place already. Mobile working for investment bankers, for wealth advisors, for frontline staff, and how do we really embrace that and make it part of their working day going forward? I'll be able to look with my head held high thinking I told you so 2, 3, 4 years ago. Probably not coming about in the best circumstances, but at least we're getting it in some ways. It's trying to look at this positively. It's made a difference, and it will make a future difference, hopefully positively, to the way in which these people work.
Awesome. Well, I can talk to you about this for hours, but well, great. I think that wraps up now. But thank you, Andy, so much. I mean, I think well, what you're doing, what you're seeing, obviously what you're doing with a lot of our clients is extremely impactful. I think just sharing your personal experience of thinking about this, and I think the conversation's not over. I think that more to come, and getting more people. I think that this is sparking a lot of, I think the collaboration amongst everybody in the industry, right? This is, across the board, something that's very top of mind. So appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, you're welcome. And I'll continue to share my insights on LinkedIn. This is the bit where I share and try and plug my new record that's coming out. But yeah, I'll be able to share my insights on LinkedIn as we go forward and as things develop, and various different musings. More than happy to keep those going.
Well, we already booked you for next week. And so next week we'll be sharing on our LinkedIn. You'll be joined by our partner, CWSI.
Brilliant.
Ireland.
Okay.
So you can catch Andy again next week. So we'll look forward to seeing you there. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.